You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Bargain Bin Gaymer, a Double Team media production here on the BQN podcast network. I am your host, Davey, and it is my job to play the cheapest and most shittest video games out there so that you don't have to. Today, I am joined by a fellow gaming enthusiast and a professional homosexual to discuss the most influential games of our own respective lives. So sit back, relax, drink from the cool pitcher of nostalgia as we do a top 3 countdown. All right, I am so lucky today to be accompanied by my dear friend who cannot stop cracking up because he's not done this before. It's Mitchell. Mitchell, how you going?
It's me. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am sensational. We've been drinking espresso martinis and we are ready to talk about, well, just the games that have shaped the wonderful human beings that we are. Isn't that right?
Wonderful's a very descriptive term, but I would say it's apt. I would say we're wonderful.
We are wonderful. Like, we're actually really, really, really nice people, by the way, everyone.
And all those people that say otherwise, I don't know them.
Yeah.
Never met them.
What the fuck? All right, so we've got a very interesting topic today. So we've gotten together and so... Look, there's a bit of an age difference between us, right? Like,
I don't know what you're talking about. We look exactly the same age.
Exactly, right? So we are here to explore the differences in, we've got age difference, we've got weight difference, and we played all kinds of different games growing up. So, look, I am 40 years old. Mitchell, how old are you?
I'm 26, so
That's
almost
a lie.
half. I'm 26.
Oh, okay.
I turned 27 this year.
Okay, cool. All
Wow,
right.
fake friend.
Yeah.
He's invited to my birthday.
I know, I don't really care how old you're turning as long as I get a drink out of it, but that's fine.
You can have several.
Okay, excellent.
At your age, you need them. So.
Well, no, I don't, because that's a surefire way to make sure I sleep through your fucking bottomless brunch, all right?
But yeah, so for everyone listening, I was born in 97. So I'm a 97 baby. I'm what the kids call a Z-lennial. So I'm right on the edge of like a millennial and a Gen Z. So whatever that means. You're a baby boomer?
I'm not a baby boomer. I'm actually Gen X crossed with...
We're like dog breeds.
Like I'm some kind of mongrel fucking bitch. No, I am... Yeah, look, I'm like a Gen X with a millennial rising. It's pretty much what's going on in my life right now. Yeah. But anyway, we're both avid gamers.
Avid gamers.
Like, we love our games. But obviously... growing up in different generations, different games influenced who we are. So we're here today to talk about, well, what are the top 3 games that influenced us and our habits in gaming? So we're going to start with your first game of your top 3 most influential. What is it?
So it's the first video game I ever owned. I dabbled in video games before. My stepdad used to work at a tattoo parlor, so I played a couple video games there while big scary men got tattooed. I don't know if that influenced my type. But as a young child, I was a very annoying person and a very annoying child. So my parents got me a Game Boy Advance for Christmas of 2007. And of that year, I also...
Wait, hang on. Christmas 2007 was the first time you owned a video game?
Yeah.
How about fuck you?
I was 10.
All right, sorry, keep telling
Wait,
me.
it wasn't 2007. Wait, we got to go back.
What year was it?
It was 2005. I'm a dumb bitch.
2005. That's fine.
Doesn't change your reaction.
Yeah, no editing, isn't it? I mean, still fuck you, but keep going.
Even more, 2 years back.
Yeah.
So it was 2005. I want to send your mind back. It was 2005. I just got my Game Boy Advance, and it came with a cute little like holder for it. It was like a little like...
A case?
No, yes, but no. It was it had like Velcro. It was a Velcro little case, and it had Rayquaza on it. and it's because I got the edition of Pokemon Emerald.
Yeah.
I'd watched the Pokemon anime before. I remember when I had to get a tooth pulled, they told me to like list the Pokemon. Like that was my thing. I used to watch anime, but I never played the game. So they got me the game to like keep me busy. And it was like,
Mind blown.
I didn't realize that you could play video games. It was not my thing.
You're like, what are these bizarre little animals that
I thought you had
are
to sit
doing
there.
my bidding right now?
I thought you had to just sit there and consume media. I didn't think you could play it. So it was definitely like an eye-opening experience to play Pokemon Emerald.
Right. Is that literally the thought that went through your head in 2005? Well, wow, I'm interacting with my media as opposed to consuming it.
It was probably more like, whoa, these are cool. They can punch each other. Fuck yeah.
Well, no, okay, look, your first game is definitely a formative experience, right? I mean, I won't talk too much on what my one. It was called Teddy Boy. It was on the Master System too. Go fuck yourself.
Or whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah. So, but look, and I've known you a while, so I know that Pokemon is a very formative. I don't know. You're just really into Pokemon, right?
I love Pokemon. Pokemon, I joke about how I don't remember people's names because I have all my RAM used for Pokemon knowledge. Like,
Right.
I understand all the Pokemon breeding types. I understand how they're color coordinated in a Pokedex. Like, I understand all this like weird niche shit about Pokemon.
Yep.
Because of this. This is the reason why. This is why this is my number one.
And this was the second generation of Pokemon games, right?
It was the third.
Third.
It was actually quite a controversial generation as well because Generation 1 and Generation 2, I never really played them too much. I played their remakes. I know, boo, whatever. Fake fan. But Generation 3 actually had no backwards compatibility. So none of the Pokemon that you had from Generation 1 and 2 you could transfer over. So it was like a massive thing. And anyone that follows any kind of Pokemon news to this day knows that if something can't backwards compatible, like Pokemon Sword and Shield, when they had their big deck set cut and stuff, it's a massive deal. But back then, because we didn't have as much social media, it wasn't that bad. So, but I had no idea about that because I'd never played a Pokemon game. But it was the first time that the games were in proper color, like they had different colors and textures. The sound was so different and so crazy. In Emerald, they also had moving sprites, which was the first time they did it ever. Like there was like cool little sparkles and stuff. It was very gay.
But this all would have been new to you anyway. You would have been like,
yeah.
this is literally the first time this has happened in this game, and it's the first time my tiny little brain is seeing it.
Correct. I was like, wow, that Pokemon turned blue for a second. This is crazy. So
Technology.
the future's now, old man. Is what I told my parents. But it's just got to hook on me because it made me feel like adventurous and outgoing, and it let me understand that I could, be myself and all that gay young shit. Like you get to develop your team and like do your own shit like through the gameplay.
Yeah.
And even like as an adult, like when a new game comes out, the first thing I think of is like, oh my God, how am I going to plan my team around like what I like and what is cool and blah, blah, blah. So
Pokemon Emerald for the Game Boy Advance sold 7 million units worldwide. It was the third most, or the third highest rating game on the Game Boy Advance. And in comparison, I think the highest selling game was the original Red, Green, Blue, right? Which
not
was
surprising, yeah.
31 million combined copies.
Which is crazy. Like if you think about like what that actually looks like pre-internet, by the way.
Yeah.
Because the original Pokemon games came out in 1994 or 1995.
Yeah.
So like it was like pre-internet, pre-everything basically, and they still managed to sell that well. So it was a Pokenomenon.
Why? Okay, you've taken me back.
Yeah.
You've taken me through the experience of playing it for the first time. But why does this series capture your heart so much?
I think it just hit at the right time, at the right place, like perfectly. So like I moved around a lot as a kid, and I remember when I started work, like we moved around a lot, and I remember at the start of Pokemon Emerald, your character actually moves house, and you're like sitting in the back of a moving van, which is child neglect, by the way. Like I don't know how that works. They put their child in the back of a moving van. But like things like that, like I got to sink my teeth really into the game, and I will never forget it. There was a time that I'd how old was I then? I was 7, so I was in,
Fuck you. Sorry.
I was I was young. I was very, very impressionable. Yeah. But I think I was in like grade 5, grade 4. What year is that?
It's in how old are you in grade 5 or grade 4?
When you're 7, how old are you? Like what grade?
No, you're like 10 in grade 4.
Oh fuck! So I was in like grade like 3.
Again, fuck you.
Anyway.
I'd already graduated high school 5 years prior, but anyway. Keep going.
My school was really, really poor. And so we were sponsored by the local church. And my mum hates religion. Like, it's like her least favorite thing.
Yeah.
And I was playing Pokemon. And like I was vibing with it, and obviously it's got like evolution and stuff like that. But I was in RC, religious studies or whatever it's called, and my mum kicked me out, and I had to go and sit out in the hallway by myself for a whole hour and play it on school time. So they're the kind of things that I remember, like such formative, like sitting there playing the game like on school hours, or like playing the trading card game and stuff like that. Like just Pokemon just like sunk its hooks in from this one game.
Right.
But also this is the first game that I ever played where story was really important. There's a really great environmental message in Pokemon Emerald, because the game is all about this, one of the two evil teams
Enslaving animals.
enslaving animals, making them beat the shit out of each other until one of them dies.
I know, I'm heartwarmed already, but go on.
It's like Babe Pig in the City. It's so cute. But the evil teams are trying to like expand the earth or expand the ocean, because they're like, oh, it's better for Pokemon, like fuck humans. But they find out that their extremism is too much, and there's an equal balance, and everything needs to be in a delicate balance. And it was the first time I'd ever understood themes in a movie. Not a movie, a game. But like the first time I'd ever had themes kind of spelled out to me, and I'm like, oh, I can understand that. But then also like level progression and stuff like that. I'd obviously never played a video game, so I assumed that's how all games worked. It was all level progression, but the customization of teams and stuff like that, that was the thing. Pre this and post this, but when I first got Pokemon Emerald, I actually didn't realize you could save the game. So the way that I played it was, I'd wake up, I'd play the game, I'd close the Game Boy Advance SP that I had,
Clamshell,
plug it in so that it wouldn't die, and then keep playing it until I had to go to bed. So I never really got that far to start with. And then I realized, because my mom was like, why don't you just save the game, you dumb bitch. I think grand total, probably like 4 years of my life were dedicated to this. There's a whole point at the end which spurned me onto my competitive Pokemon career, which is the Battle Frontier. So at the end of Pokemon Emerald, you have the Battle Frontier, which is where like the best of the best Pokemon trainers go. And it's all like random chance battles, or like based on your natures, and all these weird quirky mechanics. And that inspired me to do competitive Pokemon. And I find competitive Pokemon really, really fun. I think it's like what adults should be doing with Pokemon. I mean, live your childhood wonder, but having like optimized Pokemon and like have them like fit a certain mold is really, really cool. And this is what started it, because like at the end of the game, it's like, well, you're not a baby anymore. You've beat the whole game.
One other note that you kind of gave me here was, you know, the cutscene with Rayquaza.
Perfect. Yep.
Yeah. I watched that on YouTube today. And I was like, why has he put this in the show notes with a little rolls on the floor laughing emoji? Because I literally just watched one of these colorful little sprites spring around, and then some people disappeared, and then they were like, oh, let's go to the shop and get some MP herbs. Okay, tell me what I missed.
So basically what happens is there's 3 legendary Pokemon. Most games have 3 legendary Pokemon, and there's one is like the master of the 3. You've got Kyogre, who's the ancient embodiment of the ocean. You've got Groudon, which is like the ancient embodiment of the earth. And they are like always feuding. You know how water and earth is. And the evil teams... You know how Earth is.
Water and Earth, fucking always at it. Classic Water and Earth.
Take it outside, guys, honestly.
Yeah.
But the evil teams match that. So you've got Team Aqua and Team Magma, and they're both trying to like expand the land, expand the sea. They want to use a legendary Pokemon for that. They release both. It's fucking cataclysm.
Yeah.
There's torrential rainpours. There's beaming sun that's like drying out everything. It's crazy, right?
No.
So Rayquaza lives in the ozone layer. He's like this big green dragon.
Of course he does.
Of course he does. He eats meteorites. He just serves, you know what I'm saying? And he comes down, and there's a cutscene where like the heavens open up and he comes down and he roars at them, and they both like back away. And I remember as a kid watching that, I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like I was like, oh my God, this is so sick. And then you get
Have you watched it recently?
Yeah, no.
Okay, sorry.
Do not ruin my childhood. I thought this was a safe space.
Okay, keep going.
You're going to talk about some like Pogon, like N64 bullshit. And I'm going to be like, what's that? So there's 2 ways you could probably digest Pokemon Emerald again. One of them is technically not, because they remade Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. Ruby and Sapphire are kind of like the base versions of that game. So they're a little bit different. It still includes Emerald storylines, though. There's like the Delta episode, which deals with Rayquaza and stuff like that. But for the original cartridge, you can actually buy it online. I was having a bit of a look around, and I was like, oh my god, a
Yeah,
Game
but you
Boy-
need a GBA for it.
Yeah, well, we could do it legally, but the only
Don't do that here.
I would never do that.
No.
I've never done that.
Okay.
But you can still buy the cartridge. I think it's about like $30 or $40. You can buy it online. So if you still have a working Game Boy Advance, you can. But unfortunately, if you don't, it's lost of time.
Okay, so the first game I wanted to pick is actually, so it's Sonic the Hedgehog 2. From the Sega Mega Drive, which is also known as the Genesis. Like, do you know what that is?
I've heard of
Have you
it.
played a Sonic game before?
I'm going to get booed. The people are going to riot. The only Sonic game I've ever played is Sonic Unleashed, which is where he turns into like a werehog. And it's like, it's notoriously very bad.
I think you just need to go and walk outside into the traffic right now. Okay, so look, Sonic 2 is probably Sonic is a long-running franchise, right? So
When did it start? Do you know? Like,
yeah, I mean the original was like 1990 or something like that.
I wasn't even a thought.
Yeah, and look, and this one, so Sonic 2 from the Mega Drive is considered one of the greatest games of all time. So sold over 7 million copies in its original run and became the second best-selling game on the Sega Mega Drive, second only to its predecessor, the original Sonic the Hedgehog.
Is Sonic like the fighter to Mario? Like they were kind of like rivals.
Yeah. So back then, Sega was in the console business, right? So
Whenever that ended.
early 2000s.
Yeah,
So Sega Dreamcast kind of killed all that for them. But yeah, so the console wars used to be Sega and Nintendo.
Yeah.
And Mario was the shit.
He was the shit.
He was the shit. And so Sonic was very much Sega's answer to Mario. And he was so different.
He was cool.
He was cool.
Sonic fucked.
Yeah, exactly. If you ever remember the cartoon, it was like Sonic, he can really move. Sonic, he's got an attitude. Yeah. Sonic, he's the fastest thing alive. My journey with playing Sonic the Hedgehog 2, so I actually did not really play it on release because, back then at that age, you just got whatever game was given to you, right? Mm-hmm. So when Sonic the Hedgehog 2 came out, I still owned a Sega Master System, which was the predecessor of the Sega Mega Drive. And they had a Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Sega Master System, but it was a completely different game, developed by a completely different team, and it had nothing that Sonic 2 was promised to be, right? So you were meant to have Tails, this new companion.
You love Tails?
Exactly. A little fucking fox.
Tail.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he wasn't in the Master System version. He was on the front cover, but the whole mission of the Master System version of the game was to save him. Mm-hmm. So at the beginning of every level, you just saw him being carried away by old Robotnik. And I was just like, hang on, I've been lied to. And what made it even worse is, so back then, get this, I bought a Sega magazine from the news agency.
What's a magazine?
It is print media.
Ew.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it came with a VHS tape, which included footage of upcoming Sega games.
Of course.
And Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was due out around it, but it had all this footage of Sonic the Hedgehog 2 from the Mega Drive. And so I spent years begging to get the Mega Drive with Sonic the Hedgehog 2 so I could finally play the Sonic I wanted to play. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't you guess it, when they actually got me a Mega Drive, they got me a Mega Drive with Jurassic Park. Not only that, was the worst version of Jurassic Park, if anyone knows what I'm talking about from those days. So anyway, look, I finally get it. It's amazing, right? Like, okay, so it's a platformer, but it's a platformer unlike anything else. It's about speed. You've got big, bright, colorful visuals. There was all this amazing stuff you could do for the first time. So Tails would follow you around and help you. I love co-op gaming.
Yeah, cute.
So if you plugged a second controller in, a friend could actually control Tails, make him fly, pick you up, fly you around to all these higher levels.
That's so cute.
It was super cute. But there was a split screen mode as well. Terrible.
Not as good. Just play on the same screen.
Exactly. Don't even bother with it. And look, it was a platforming game that just changed my view on gaming, and it was a game that I played over and over and over, because back then you didn't save games, right? You just kept playing, you just kept trying to get a better score.
You did the Mitch Pokemon Emerald beginning phase.
Exactly. Except I had no excuse because I couldn't actually
you just
save.
want a fucking idiot.
Exactly. Anywho, so, and literally you just had to turn it on every day and see how far you could get. And add to that as well, to be able to get the proper ending of the game, you had to try and get all these things called the Chaos Emeralds.
I know about the Chaos Emeralds.
Yeah. So you would get them from the bonus stages, which were 3D.
Like you didn't even have color back then. What are you talking about?
Actual 3D. Now these were times when it actually helped to have someone plug in an extra controller and control Tails, because if Tails was controlling himself through the computer, he always lagged behind you a little bit, and he would hit the bombs in the 3D course, which would make him lose rings. And the whole point of the 3D bonus stages was to get enough rings in time to get the fucking Chaos Emerald. And he fucked it up every time. Seriously. Fucking Tails. But yeah, look, it was a formative one for me. And me and my sisters would like yell and scream and all that kind of stuff. And friends would come over and we'd plug in the second controller and just see how far we would get. And like all Sonic games, its difficulty curve would just ramp up and up and up and up and up. But yeah, I loved it. The 3D Sonics of the modern era have never really managed to kind of capture that same essence. I mean, there's a few of them, like Sonic Colors was really good.
I think Sonic's just a 2D game. Like it's kind of like what Mario's done. Like I think Mario, like Mario Galaxy, Mario Odyssey, they're really, really good games. But like that's not really Mario. It's kind of like a different thing.
Oh, I don't know. I humbly disagree. But I think Mario's translated well to the 3D realm.
But when he's like 2D, not two-dimensional, but like when he's on that scroller, kind of like what Sonic would be. I feel like that's like bread and butter.
Well, that's why Sonic Generations was really popular, because it combined 2D and 3D levels with a ridiculous story. But that's fine, because even in this game, right, like this was back in the day where you got the story of the game by reading the instruction booklet. God, so there was a story to it, and it was on the South Island of fucking wherever, and the whole point of it was just get the emeralds and save Tails or whatever, run, release the little bunnies and you're all good. One thing I do remember about playing this game though was frustration. Like, but you know what? It didn't matter then, because, we're spoiled for choice these days. This was the game I had, and it was the game I had to master. And yesterday I loaded it up and played the first few levels, and again, I was like, ugh. So Chemical Plant Zone, anyone who's ever played it knows what I'm talking about, but like there are just moments where you just die over it and it just doesn't make any sense, and it's so frustrating, and
banging your head against a wall basically.
And it's probably the more intricate parts of it which are the more frustrating. Like when you're moving at pace and you're moving at speed, it's really fun, but then when it becomes really fiddly, tricky platforming, trickly.
I think there's a pill for that.
Deary me. When it becomes really kind of the more tricky platforming, it gets really, really bang your head against the wall.
Well, can you tell me a little bit more about that, actually? Not to go too far into it, but I always thought of Sonic as like, it's like going fast, like bouncing through, collecting as many rings. Like, is there parts where you have to slow down and like methodically work your way through a level?
Yeah, exactly. And each level had different paths. So you could kind of take the high road or the low road, right? So if you just zoom through it, then, you can kind of take the lower paths. But if you kind of stop and look around, you're like, oh, actually there's a higher path I can take. And the higher path usually has more risk, it's more challenging, but it yields more rewards. I had this game for years as a kid, and years in, I was still finding different parts of the levels I had not seen before.
I'm just thinking of like little baby Davey being like, wait, I'm frustrated because I don't know how to do it.
I know, I still kind of behave like that today, so that's all good. That's all good. Look, it's still out there, and here's the thing, like, the original trilogy of Sonic the Hedgehog games have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
And to the point where Sega was still reinventing this game 2 games later in the franchise. So there was Sonic 3, and then there was Sonic and Knuckles. Now, Sonic and Knuckles was a cartridge that plugged into the Mega Drive, and you could flip the top of that cartridge open and plug another cartridge into the top of that cartridge.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And so what you could do is you could plug Sonic 2 or Sonic 3 into the top of Sonic and Knuckles, and it like made it almost a completely different game. Yeah, so it was still Sonic 2, but you could play as Knuckles, and you could use all of Knuckles had completely different abilities. Yeah,
Australian reference, by the way.
Yeah, la 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 la. I don't know why I la la la, but you're right.
Like that's our national anthem. La 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 la.
It could be. It should be. But anyway, like imagine that in that time, right? Picture this. 1990, whenever Sonic and Knuckles came out. Like it's all of a sudden I'm just going to... I've had this game that I've had for years. It was the original fucking DLC, mate. All right?
Didn't even have to... Well, you did pay for it. Anyway,
yeah.
It was DLC.
Yeah. So anyway, it was crazy. And there was also... This was back in the day of cheats. Now,
God, I was thinking about that as well. Yeah.
So Sonic 2 had this debug cheat. It was so hard to pull off. And in fact, I meant to research it before we recorded today. I did not. But I can remember spending like an entire day trying to get this cheat to work. And if you got it to work, you could literally debug the whole game, and you could fill a whole level with a million rings.
I was going to say, what does debug mean? Are you saying the game was buggy and you had to manually fix it?
Debug basically means that you could change the code of the game, right? Like it would allow you to completely transform levels to make it amazingly easy for yourself. Fill it with thousands of rings so that you could immediately, because if you got 100 rings, you got a life, so you could immediately get like 100 lives. Or you could transform into this invincible supersonic. Or
is it the Gold Sonic?
Yeah. So, but it was so hard to pull off. Like you had to pull this really intricate combination of button presses off, like somewhere between seeing the Sega at the beginning and the actual like title screen.
Yeah.
But if you could get it, it was the best.
It was the best.
It was the best. But like it only worked once. Like so like
wait, you could only do it once on like one console.
Well, like if you reset it, like if you reset the console or anything like that, then you were back to ground zero.
You got to do it again.
But yeah, like but this was the thing. This is what you did then. You had this one game.
Yeah. And you just played it to death.
It's a game that has been repackaged and resold a million times. You can still play it today. I saw it in the Nintendo Switch store for $10.95. You can also download the game Sonic Mania, which came out 2016, which is a game. It's a 2D Sonic game, but it is a love letter to the Sonic games of the 90s. So lots of levels that are kind of homages.
Homage.
Yeah. But hey, make it gay. Make it gay.
Tell me, Davey.
Yeah. I mean, Sonic is gay as you can fucking get. But no, look, there's no actual queer representation. It is a 1992 platformer after all. However, I did read, so Tails is considered to be somewhat effeminate to some because, again, the slightly effeminate one must be the gay character.
Well, I remember watching the anime and I always thought Tails was gay. I always related with Tails because he was like kind of like softer and meeker and like, you know, he was kind of girly. I kind of liked it.
Okay, cool. But again, this is it. Like, we have to associate the effeminate character with being the gay
We're
character.
picking at straws.
All right. So, okay, cool. So, Sonic the Hedgehog, it's a timeless classic. If you haven't, I would strongly encourage you to go try it, right? So, you can either get it on Nintendo Switch, and actually, what I did find as well is it comes bundled in a lot of these like Sega Master System, Sega classics of all time.
Yeah.
And there's one at the moment I saw, I think it was on Xbox Store or on PC for $5.99. Came with a whole bunch of Sega games, including Sonic 2. It's a classic.
That's
classic.
a bargain bin price.
That is, I'm right at the bargain bin. Okay, so your second game is one that I have never heard of before.
It's a bit of a left field pick, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually the name of one of my favorite Star Trek episodes.
Of course it is.
But we're not on my Star Trek podcast right now.
I feel like any combination of English words could be made to be a Star Trek
They're very highly informed Shakespearean intellectual kind of titles. I'll have you fucking know, all right? So just...
Anyway, I'll stick to my lane.
Yeah, tell me about your game.
So the game is it came out on the PlayStation 3. That's where I played it. I'm not too sure if it came out on anything else. I think it might have been an exclusive, but it was created by a developer called Don't Nod. A lot of people that might be listening and watching probably know them from a video game called Life is Strange.
Oh, yeah, I know Life is Strange.
I never played it, but I know a lot of people really
Great
loved
game.
it.
Great game.
Yeah. So that was kind of like their tentpole one. The one that I'm thinking about that really mattered to me was their one prior to, which almost sunk the company. Whoopsies. And it's called Remember Me.
Let's play a new game with new rules. The hunted becomes the hunter.
So it came out in 2013. So I was 15 at the time. I have a PlayStation 3. I was vibing. I was going through high school. You know how it is. Pause for the fuck you.
Fuck you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so Remember Me, before we go into it, so it didn't sell as well as they were hoping. I remember there was a interview with the director of the company, and they mentioned how lucky for them that Life is Strange blew up so well because this game actually kind of tanked them, which is surprising because it sold 2.1 million units, which is pretty good for a brand new IP.
Life is Strange was around about the same time, wasn't it?
It came out, Life is Strange came out in 2019. So they took about a
did?
4-year break. Yeah, it was like 2018, 2019, right?
I thought Life is Strange was much earlier than that. But
No, I'm pretty sure it was around like 2018, 2019. I don't have my reference, but...
if you know, please add in the comments.
If you know, please respectfully put it in the comments specifically.
Stick it up your comments.
Stick it up your comments.
All right, sorry, go on.
So it came out at a really pivotal time for me because this is when I was going through a lot of like, what do I want to do for work? What is a job? What is capitalism? Ha ha ha. And so the game came out.
You're still figuring that out.
Still figuring it out. But the game came out and it played perfectly fine. Picture Batman like Arkham Asylum, but in Paris, basically. Like the combat is basically.
I'm picturing it.
Yeah, it's basically like if you've ever played any of the Arkham games,
which I have.
It's basically that combat. But you're this hot girl with a bob. Walking around Paris in the future, basically. It took place in a place called Neo Paris. It was in the future. It was very cyberpunky. Like Paris had been ruined and a bunch of like augmentation to the city had been added in. There was a lot of like holograms. There was a lot of like capitalism, like people building on top of other people and the lower people living at the bottom and the rich living on top. Like it was very like dystopian-esque.
Yeah.
It was like Cyberpunk 2077 or 74, whatever the fuck it's called. Like before that was ever a thing. So to me, like it was my awakening into like the sci-fi futuristic genre. But the combat was pretty whatever. But they had a fantastic mechanic where the point of the game is that everyone has this neural link in the back of their neck. And it stores all of their memories.
Right.
And people can access them and tamper with them. And your character, her name is Nilan. She's like a runner and she can like tamper with people's memories and they're trying to hunt her down for it. And there was all these scenes in the game, which was it kind of reminded me of, what's that game called? Like LA Noire.
Yeah. I'm actually getting kind of Watch Dogs / cyberpunk vibes.
Very kind of that. Yeah. So, but what would happen is you'd have like an important character you're trying to beat. And instead of beating the shit out of them, which you would still do, you could actually like alter their memory for them to become more like amorous and positive towards you. And it would be like cutscenes that you had to edit in a certain way. It was very fun. And it wasn't like the biggest life-changing game to me, but it came to me at a point where because I wanted to change career, I was looking at this environment of this game and it's so detailed. Like it's such a detailed game for something that came out in fucking, when was it? 2013.
2013, yeah.
So the world had ended last year. But the game was so detailed that I actually went and bought the concept art book because I thought I wanted to be a game developer because of playing this game.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like changing my life because of gameplay. It was because of the art direction and how beautiful the game was.
Yeah.
On PlayStation 3 as well. It was just like revolutionized me. And that's why when future games came out like Cyberpunk 2077, 2074 or whatever it's called. I was like, oh, I see the roots of this in that. I see all of this in there. So, but it was just a formative game where it made me understand like the beauty of a game.
From what I'm hearing from what you're saying, it's about world building.
Yeah.
So world building in any work of fiction is so important.
Yeah.
And when you get a game like this where you believe in the world, right? And I mean, I've never played it. I looked it up today when I saw that you'd placed it in the notes for what you wanted to talk about. I was just like, what is this? Is this bitch on drugs?
The answer is yes.
All of them. But I was just like, okay, cool. Like, I've never played this, but I kind of want to now, right? Because, you know, cyberpunk, especially like those real dystopian kind of sci-fi kind of things. And so it sounds like you were just really absorbed in the lore of it.
Yeah.
And it's almost kind of a bit of a, you know, with a game like this, it probably should have been a little bit more of a hit than what it was.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like a hidden gem. Like, I know a lot of people that have played it are like, wow, it's amazing. And it obviously has shortcomings. Like, it's like a very linear game. Like, it's not like I can just travel about. And it is fairly narrow in scope. You're just kind of like trying to like break out someone and like get yourself free. Like, it's nothing too crazy, not like saving the world. The world's already a shithole. Like, you're not fixing it. But you are right. Like, it was just the entrenchment into the obvious care that the developers had put into the game and like the obvious work that had gone into developing how it all operates. Like, an example being that you're on the run from the police and you go through a series of houses. Yeah. And there are a bunch of just apartments, but they're so futuristic and there's so many bits and bobs that wouldn't even be there on a normal game. Like, the toaster pops up with a little thing saying like, how do you want it toasted? And you're just running past it. You can't interact with it. And like the windows have like little buttons saying like shutter open or close. You actually can't interact. It's just a design feature there to be like, this is a lived in space. People usually live here. You're just going through. It's
I think that's the difference between like a game which has clearly had a lot of care put into it.
Yeah.
Than some of the other shit that I've played on this podcast. Like, it's, you know, I mean, like, so.
Can't wait to be a part of it, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but, you know, because that's detailed. Like, someone coding the game somewhere had to go, oh, let's make it so the toasters, you know, are real. Like, and that's the difference between just a game that you just play from point A to point B, earn your trophies and achievements, and off you go, to something that's an experience that you really relish and enjoy. So,
well, it actually made me not want to play through the game. Does that make sense? Like, I was in an environment where I was like, I love this. Like, there's little signs and the game has real-time tracker in there. And it's like, sorry, this venue's closed. This venue's open. Not that you could go in, but I was like, this is so cool. Like, the world feels lived in and it felt so detailed that I didn't want to go past it because I couldn't go back. And
this is quite a linear experience.
It's very linear, You can't really go back, but you go into these fantastical set pieces. Like, they have this massive prison called La Bastille, which is obviously a reference to the
La Bastille?
Yeah. The band. But like, that was really, really memorable because you were trapped in prison. You were basically helpless. And then you've got like the Undercity, which is where like all like the gross people like live and stuff like that. And then you've got all the places where her parents are from, which is like this like super ultra futuristic fancy place.
So what killed it? Why wasn't it successful?
I don't know. I think maybe...
Is there parts of it that are shit to play? Was there other stuff? Was it eclipsed by some other release? Like, did you do this much research?
I didn't do too much research. I do think that 2013 was a pretty like competitive time to release a game. Yeah. And they're not a well-known...
Because of PS3, yeah?
PS3, yeah. This was not a well-known like company. Like, Don't Nod, who the fuck is that, right? Like, and that's why I think I think what happened was 2013, they released the game. It was all right. I think it was eclipsed by things like I mentioned, like Batman Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, I think came out around that time as well. But then when they released their other game, Life is Strange, that was when like streaming video games was like a massive thing. So people like PewDiePie and stuff like that were playing Life is Strange.
Oh, yeah. So Twitch was starting to be a thing.
So I think they just missed the mark. But I think it's really like a hidden gem. Like, I went back and I watched a lot of clips from it and I was like, oh, like, if they ever remastered the game, I'd be there at the front of the line buying it. Like, I would be ready to go.
And you can play it on Steam.
You can still play it on Steam.
Yeah,
I had a look.
$44. It's not exactly a bargain.
Not exactly a bargain. But even then, I was having a look. You can buy like a hard copy version, which you can back play on your PlayStation 5 for $30.
Sweet. So what about representation? I mean, obviously, any game where you are playing as a badass female lead is obviously kicking goals in terms of representation. Yeah. But, you know, where does it go beyond that?
Unfortunately, not really anywhere, which kind of sucks. I do think that the female character is probably like the best latch point. She doesn't have a really like a love interest in the game either as well. She probably easily passes the Bechdel test, thank God.
Is she kind of queer-coded at all? She doesn't have to be. It's not a prerequisite.
Does having a bob count as being queer?
Absolutely.
Because she's got a fierce bob.
Yeah,
and she's
that
got
says to me Pottery Barn on a Sunday.
with her cat, with her red wine. Love it.
Yeah.
She's got like streaks in her hair.
That's how I want to go to Pottery Barn.
But no, there wasn't really any queer representation. It was mostly like it was the future. So there wasn't any like, the way that they reference people was not like they're queer or not. Like they were just like, oh, there's different people living in this Parisian place, and the focus point was how eccentric everyone looked. So it was kind of hard to sift through and be like, well, they had a shaved head but 4 braids like parted along, and she was kind of fabulous. She was, of course, fabulous, but I don't think she was queer. It was just the future.
Yeah.
So their idea was that everyone just looked eclectic.
Yeah.
So
As a badass female lead, is she overly sexualized or anything like that? Because that tends to be a bit of a trope.
she is a little bit. She wears like a little bolero jacket, like a short jacket. And she wears like skin tight pants.
Yeah.
And she's more of a kicker, which is like a very female coded fighting style I tend to find. Like I feel like
Kicking.
Yeah,
so girly.
No, but like if you play like a video game, like you think about like Chun-Li. She's
yeah.
He's got a helicopter kick and stuff. Like I mentioned Arkham City, like Catwoman, she fights and she kicks a lot. Same with Nilin, which is her name. She does a lot of like flipping and kicking, which I always found very, very fierce. It was very gymnastics coded. But yeah, she was also like a bit of a brawler too. So she was still tough. She was very cool. Yeah.
Okay. Remember me? Interesting. Really interesting choice. And I'm glad you actually picked something that I'd never heard of before.
Yeah, because I tossed up. This one was the hardest one for me to think about. But there's so many of random games that I could have put there. But this one was one that formulated me to look at games in like a more deep way. Like Pokemon Emerald, it was just, oh, how fun's a game? This one I was like, look at the world. Look at how much care and energy went into it. And this will then relate to my third one as well. So.
So my second game is one that I know that we've both played. So my second game is Halo 3.
Oh, classic.
They let me pick. Did I ever tell you that? Choose whichever Spartan I wanted. You know me. I did my research, watched as you became the soldier we needed you to be. Like the others, you were strong and swift and brave. A natural leader. But you had something they didn't. Something no one saw but me. Can you guess? Luck.
So Halo 3 from 2007, which, God, I don't want to know how old you were back then, but I was already in my 20s. I was probably about 22, 23, I think, when this came out. Just calm your tits, all right? Okay, so Halo 3, it wasn't the final in the Bungie developed games. There were a few more after this, but it did kind of conclude the original Halo trilogy. You know, grossed over $300 million in its first week. It had over 1 million people playing Halo 3 on Xbox Live within the first 24 hours. I was very much one of those people. And, you know, within its first year, it sold 8.1 million copies and was the best-selling video game in 2007 in the United States. So there's a lot of people who kind of argue like which is the best of the original trilogy of Halo games.
I've heard that fight before.
Yeah, and so a lot of people really think fondly of Halo 2. Now I've mentioned it on this channel before that the sort of Xbox, PS2, GameCube generation of gaming I largely skipped.
Yeah.
Because I was a young starving artist and I couldn't afford it. I had a GameCube, I sold it to pay my rent. I did play Halo 2 on a friend's Xbox and thought, wow, this is amazing. And when I finally had the means to get the 360 and there wasn't a lot out, but Halo was the main thing to look forward to.
It was like a launch title, wasn't it? I feel
No. It came out quite a while. So it came out almost a year after.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because it was like 2005, 2006 when the 360 was released.
Oh my God, I feel old.
I know. You and me both. So this was a game I can remember. I was working in hospitality at the time. I organized my roster so I could have almost a whole week off. I worked a shitload either side. 7 o'clock in the morning, I got up. I went to EB Games at Westfield Hurstville in Sydney.
A classic.
Exactly. And I got the special edition with the giant Master Chief helmet, and I was so excited.
Oh my God.
And it's one of the few times, and you know, I don't, at my age, I don't get these kind of experiences with games anymore where I just played and played.
Yeah.
And played this game because it was so easy to just play and play and play it because it was such an immersive experience and it was just so chock full of like, and again, you don't get this with a lot of games now because it all gets added post-release as DLC and patches.
And stuff,
yeah. All the content was there from the word go. Yeah, I mean, they added stuff to it and extra maps in the death matches and all that kind of stuff.
But an extra map does not make a DLC. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the developers being like, "Ooh, a passion project. Here's some extra maps." Like, they're not fixing the game by adding them. That's a little extra, yeah.
And it wasn't even about story or anything like that for me. It was just, I mean, the story in Halo is kind of cool. With you know, with the Covenant and the race with to find the Forerunners and all that kind of stuff, and joining up with the elites and whatever the fuck was going on with Cortana, God only knows, right? But like, it was just a fun game to play, and I could play co-op online with my friends. I mentioned before I love co-op, right? And you could drop in and out of a friend's game, and the online multiplayer was incredible, and you could do all these amazing replays, and because everyone was playing it, there was just so much happening in this game.
Because that's what I know it as. Like, I was always a PlayStation person. I didn't have an Xbox, but I had friends that had Xbox. So the way that I experienced Halo 3 was through the co-op. People dropping in and out, like, and the massive, like, community of people. Like, I used to put headphones on and talk to random strangers.
Yeah.
I was a child.
And people used to actually communicate when they played these games.
It wasn't
back
just
then.
like the bullshit slurs that go on now. It was like, "Oh, we're in a team. We're Team Red. Let's go." It was very cute.
But I was still playing Halo 3 multiplayer for years after it came out.
Yeah.
One of my first jobs in IT, you know, this is the nerdiest thing ever.
I'm bracing myself.
So we used to have Fragtastic Fridays.
Fragtastic?
Yeah.
Is that a slur?
Well, no, because, you know, when you kill someone in an online game, they're fragged. It's what you used to say back in the day.
That's what the kids say. Now you just teabag them and then move on.
Yeah, well, I mean, you used to do the teabagging too, but like we would. So me and this group of like guys that I worked with, we would all jump. You know, I mean, they were all doing it because they had wives and kids and nothing else to do with my time. I was just a loser.
The straight people, no offense.
But we would all get online on a Friday night and just play Halo matches. And this was in 2008, 2009, 2010, right, until it was superseded by another title. Which it was actually. I mean, there was another game that came out, Halo 3 ODST.
Yeah, I remember that one. That's like a blank spot in my brain of what Halo is.
It's this entire separate release that should have just been DLC.
Yeah.
It's really weird. You don't even play as Master Chief. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine, but that's about it. And it was one of the only games where I've felt really compelled to go and try and finish the higher difficulties.
Oh, I love that with games.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, I've done it. I want to do it better now.
It was the ultimate for replayability.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was things to find as well. Like there was these skulls that were hidden in the most obscure places, and if you got them, you got other special skills that you could unlock that would help you beat the game at higher difficulties and all that kind of thing. You had the Forge, which meant you could make your own multiplayer maps.
Yeah.
I mean, look, and I mean, I will say, look, you know, Halo is not very well known for its representation. It's very fucking.
I was gonna say Semper Fi, hoorah.
Well, what did I find? So the only reference to a gay character I could find in the Halo universe was a character called Felicia Sanderson, a lesbian who features in a short story in the novel Halo Evolution Styles from the Halo universe.
Hi, Felicia.
Yeah, so nothing in this game. You can still play it today. So if you have Xbox Game Pass, you can get it as part of the Master Chief Collection, which is just amazing. Like, go and do it.
Do it now.
It's well worth playing. It's well worth
Put
playing.
in your credit card details.
All All right, let's move on to your third and final game. So, what have you got for us?
So this is the big one. So this is the big one. This one's for the girls. I have this video game tattooed on my body. It's probably like the only real tattoo I have that wasn't done while drunk at a nightclub. We'll go into that another day. But it's The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. 2020 happened, and I was like, what the fuck is this game that my housemate has? Breath of the Wild. I've heard it won all these awards, like blah, 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 blah. And I played it, and holy fuck, it's like the best game I've ever played in my whole life.
It's incredible.
It's unfortunately, like, I'm such a shill. Like, I'm so normal where I'm just like, it's so good. But it was like, what it meant to me during that period was I was locked in my house, especially in Melbourne. Like, it was pretty rough, the lockdown. Like, we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't really do anything. I was stuck with the two bitches I live with who were fucking crazy.
I know those bitches.
Unfortunately, love you. Shout out again. But
Like and subscribe.
and follow. But I needed something. I needed an outlet. And this game, we mentioned how Halo begged to be replayed. This game is built on the idea to explore every inch and crevice and canyon that could possibly be in the map. Like, I booted up the game and I was like, this is cute. The cell shading's really nice. Obviously, Link's not wearing his hat, so boo. But I was on the Great Plateau and I was like, oh, cool. Like, you can just fuck around. Like, this is a pretty sizable map. I'm sure it'll be bigger. Bang. The fucking whole world opens up to you. And it's this massive game. And then you could go anywhere and do anything. There wasn't like levels on anything. You could challenge things at your own pace. There was all these secrets to explore. You had the shrines to do, which was like little mini games on the side that gave you benefits. The Koroks. Yeah. Love them, by the way. The Divine Beast. So I've got the tattoos of the Divine Beast on my arms because this game meant so much to me during that period. Like, I know a lot of people had a really hard time, myself included, but being able to be free in Hyrule and roam around and do whatever I wanted to do and, you know, beat the Divine Beasts and chase the dragons and stuff like that and do all this awesome stuff, it like got me through COVID basically. Yeah. Like, it was so good.
You know, open worlds and sandbox games had been around for a while.
Assassin's Creed is knocking on the door.
but Nintendo just came along and said, hey, guess what? Here's this genre that's been around forever and we're going to show you how to do it.
Yeah. And I think to this very day, like, it's the benchmark.
Yeah, it is. And there's a few games, I think, like Elden Ring and stuff like that have sort of tried to emulate it.
I would say successfully. Like, games like Elden Ring, I would say, but even now, like, as a Pokemon shill, like, this is what I want from Pokemon. This is what I want from pretty much every adventure game. Like, any adventure game, like, if you can't meet this or beat it, like, what are you doing?
Exactly. And it was Nintendo's way of just saying, hey, guess what? We're still masters of our craft.
Yeah. And they really were in that game. Like, this game came out, 2017? It was originally a Wii U exclusive, but then the Wii U'd. And then it fucked up.
No, it was a master stroke to make it a launch title for the Switch, right? Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons why the Switch has just been the juggernaut that it's been.
Yeah.
I can remember because I got it not long after the Switch came out. And I went to a Costco of all places because they had it cheaper. So when I still lived in Canberra. And
a Costco in Canberra.
Yeah.
My God.
Exactly.
There's probably one.
Canberrans love toilet paper, okay?
Not surprising.
Yeah, exactly. They've got big asses that need wiping. But no.
Shit that comes out of your mouth.
Exactly. Both ends. No, but I remember I sat down and I played it and I will never forget the goosebumps I got when you come out of the cave and it spans across all of Hyrule.
Death Mountains in the background.
Yeah, and the title came up. I'm like, a game has never given me goosebumps before.
They just give you a couple directions. They say, go on, fuck off, go and do whatever you want, and you can do it however you want. And there's a point that I'll bring up. So a really memorable moment that I had, it references the Divine Beast again, but they're basically like dungeons. You know the game. I'm going to explain it to you. But in the Lightning Temple, so in Naboris, which is the one in the desert, that was the second one I did. I did the elephant one first, and then I did the lightning one, and that boss was so hard because I never knew what to expect.
Yeah.
And that boss, because it's electric, any metal items you have, you lose all of them the minute you touch him.
Yeah.
And he'll basically stun you because he moves really quick.
Yeah.
I spent, I think it was probably like 5 or 6 days trying to beat that boss.
Wow.
Over and over and over because I was so unequipped and I didn't want to go back. I was like, I'm just going to be better. I'm going to beat the game. And I mastered doing the flip dodge on this super fast enemy with like 4 hearts.
Yeah.
Because every time he'd hit me, he'd kill me. And I still remember it to this day because I'm currently playing Tears of the Kingdom and I'm stuck in the fucking lightning temple again because I've done the fucking thing again. I've gone in there, gun-ho, and I can't beat the fucking boss. But stuff like that where it's just etched in my soul like the game.
Yeah, I think everyone, if anyone who's ever played it, which is a lot of people, everyone has their own
33.5 million.
exactly, exactly right. That's huge.
It's
right?
the best-selling Zelda game.
Exactly,
It's number 1, better than Tears of the Kingdom for now. It might be big.
Yeah. And everyone's had their own unique experience with it, and if it's a game you haven't played, then you just need to play it.
Yeah.
Queer representation. If any game has got some queer coding to it, it's this one. What have we got?
So we've got a lot. So the first one that I mentioned earlier is the Great Fairies. So there's 4 of them dotted throughout the map. They're these giant women that they basically manhandle you. They're basically drag queens.
Yeah,
They're
totally.
fully dragged up.
So sexualized.
They unfortunately do kind of assault Link. But that's okay because they boost your armor and they're very camp.
It's consensual.
It's consensual. He wants his armor boosted. There's a character called Bolson.
Hi.
He lives in Hateno
Love this
Village.
one, yeah.
Love this one. He's so funny. I assume they're he because they use he, him pronouns, but he's the developer. He helps you develop your house because you can have a house in Breath of the Wild. There's actually a funny little clip that I found, and I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But if you go to Bolson and you talk to him without wearing a shirt, he calls you Perky. He's like, "Oh, aren't you Perky?" Like he's very obviously gay.
I thought he was a homage to like Queer Eye or something.
Yeah,
like
very
that.
Queer Eye. It's very that. And then he's got his the person that he works with, like Kelson or Colson or something.
Yeah.
And when they work, they go. I'll put the clip in as well. It's very gay. And then you've got Villa. Very controversial character. So Villa is a Gerudo. Gerudos are pretty much only women.
Yeah.
There's, spoiler alert, Ganondorf, who's a male. And they are like shunned from the main city. Only women are allowed in the city. And
But
then
but a man's born like once in a generation or something.
correct.
Like
So it's
that.
very special, but they're
I've
like,
always wondered how that works. But
I don't get it either.
Yeah.
I know the Gerudo like waltz around and kind of like, they fuck people and then they go back to the city. So that's kind of how they breed. But the men are cast into the desert, right? Because
Yeah.
there's a
ew.
there's a prophecy. No, there's a prophecy that one of them's going to fucking end the world. And then it does. But there's a character called Vila that you meet at the top of the Kaka Bazaar, and they give you the female outfit for Link, and they're a trans character. They're objectively a trans character. They use she, her pronouns, but they're obviously assigned male as birth. But then there's a whole scene where Link gets the armor and dresses like a girl, and there's like a little cutesy little scene, and Link's like, "Ooh, very cutesy." So it's very, very queer.
Yep.
And then the final part that I noticed is the Gorons, which are one of the main races of the video game. They're all asexual. There's no ifs or buts. There's no male or female. They just are one gender.
Yep.
And they reproduce asexually. So they're allowed in Gerudo City, which only allows women because obviously they don't have a gender. And there's like a lot of like macho bro gay elements to a lot of them, but they're all asexual, which I think is pretty fantastic, especially for such a big game. Like there's a lot of queer representation in the game.
Yeah, and it's more implied representation.
Very
right?
implied, and a lot of stereotyping, especially for like Bolson and Vila and stuff like that. Very stereotypical queer, what that looks like, and we referenced it before, like what the through the Japanese lens, what queer is, and it's a lot of cross-dressing and experimenting with gender, and it's not just a gay character; they have to also be feminine or masculine. But I don't think they're negative. I read an article about how Villa is not particularly well handled because there's a scene where their veil blows up and Link sees the beard and he's shocked. With Breath of the Wild, sorry, I know it's the Bargain Bin Gaymer. This game is still full price.
And still worth it.
And still worth it.
Still worth it.
I
100%.
recommend any listeners and watchers, if you have a Switch, go and get it. It'll change your life. It's $80 fucking bucks. It's 7 years old and it's still $80.
You probably go get a pre-owned copy.
You can get a pre-owned copy.
Which is still under even the pre-owned Nintendo. And Nintendo doesn't discount its first-party titles very often.
No.
But I would, and it plays incredibly well still today. And, would you say that someone should play Breath of the Wild? If they're going to play it today, should they play Breath of the Wild or should they play Tears of the Kingdom?
I think having played Tears of the Kingdom, you could just pick it up and play it. But I think knowing the backstory and understanding the characters from that game, it's worth doing Breath of the Wild. And especially because it'll be a more enriching experience, because half the point of playing Tears of the Kingdom is coming back to Hyrule.
Yeah.
Seeing how it's different, seeing how it's the same, meeting those characters again and saving it again. So you're almost stripping away some experience by not playing it. And it's one of the best games ever, so you may as well fuck.
But I want to talk about my final game, which is the game which competes with Breath of the Wild for the best Zelda game of all time.
And well-deserved, by the way.
Well-deserved, 100% well-deserved. And that is, of course, Ocarina of Time. So this came out in 1998. Now, it was one of the most anticipated games when it came out, and one of the most universally well-received games ever. There had never been a game before this one came out that had received so many perfect review scores. I remember, because I used to buy Nintendo magazines, and IGN was still around back then. I used to read
In print media.
No, IGN, the website was.
IGN still going?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, IGN is still going. Yeah.
I thought it had died. I was like, what happened?
No, back then was a website. You actually used to go to the. I mean, the website's still there, but now I just watch their shit on YouTube. But I remember when their review came out and they said 10 out of 10. I'm like, are you for real? 10 out of 10? What is this like sorcery? It went on to release 7.5 million copies in its initial run, which is pretty impressive for a 1990. Because the Nintendo 64 did not have a big install base as the other consoles.
I was going to say that was one of the more lower ones.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of it's still, in terms of when it came out, it's an impressive sales figure.
Yeah.
And its remaster on the 3DS sold an impressive 6.4 million copies as well. So let me take you back to when I got this game.
So it was a year after I was born. So
Christmas 1998. It was a Christmas present. Got the golden cartridge, the pre-order special.
Kez looked after you good that time.
Oh, thanks, Keza. Although I had previously hired it out from Video Easy Gorilla, so I'd already had a little bit of a play. But I was obsessed with this game. So I was an early adopter of the N64. I jumped straight from the Sega Mega Drive to the N64, so it's quite a jump in terms of graphical ability.
Yep.
I got it when it first came out. There was 3 launch titles on the N64 when it came out.
Spoiled for choice.
Super Mario 64, Pilot Wings, and Wave Race.
Wow.
Which were all wonderful games in their own right, but that was all you had. Thankfully, Mario 64 was well worth playing. But I was an avid reader of video game magazines. And I can remember getting the N64. I'd made the big jump to Nintendo, fucked off the PlayStation.
Fucked off the Sega.
Well, everyone did.
Fuck you.
But I can remember getting the official Nintendo magazine and seeing screenshots of Zelda. And it was just Zelda 64 then. And I was like, okay, this looks cool. Because prior to that, I'd played quite a few of the old 2D RPG games. One of my other ones, which almost made it onto this list, was Shining Force 2 from the Mega Drive.
Force 2, what a niche reference.
I know, right?
No offense to any Shining Force fans.
Well, no, I mean, it is a very niche reference. It's a very cult kind of following to it. But it was an RPG game, which was, larger than life characters. Believable narrative, or not believable, it's all set in a fantasy world, but just narratives that you were interested in, right? Like, because it was more than just, punching and jumping on things and all that kind of stuff. When I first started to realize that my games could actually have stories and characters that I gave a fat rat's about, that was, and I remember seeing, I'm like, okay, cool, I want this in the 3D world. Yeah. And then Zelda came out, and it was, for the Nintendo 64, it was a technical marvel. Yeah. Right? And it was all crammed onto a 32 megabyte cartridge. The recording of this episode will be more than that. Right?
This is not worth it.
I know, exactly. Yeah. And there are no pre-order bonuses with this, right? And You know, and there's a lot of iconic games from that era. None of them still play as well as what Zelda does. I mean, Mario 64 does, and Mario Kart do. GoldenEye does not play as well these days.
Not GoldenEye.
I went and played through the first dungeons of Ocarina of Time on the Switch N64 expansion pack yesterday in preparation for today, just to refresh my memory. It still plays brilliantly.
Yeah.
The controls are fabulous. It still feels really rewarding to complete the dungeons.
The sounds probably took you back.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are some muddy looking textures and some of the 2D pixels that are the sprites that are kind of the trees in the background and all that kind of thing. But I don't know, obviously Breath of the Wild eclipses it in all kinds of ways. Graphically speaking, in terms of scope and everything.
Storyline, I know, I've only ever played it sparingly. I've kind of bopped into bits and pieces.
Yeah.
But this is the game that everyone's this is the storyline. This is the one.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the one where everyone dies from the moon, yeah?
No, that's Majora's Mask. That was the follow-up. But here's the thing, right? There was so much content and assets available for this game.
Yeah.
Majora's Mask was its sequel.
Yeah.
And it was all just repurposed assets and unused assets.
That's why I get them mixed up. I'm hang on. They look exactly the
No,
same.
no. Ocarina of Time is, as always, it's it's about Princess Zelda and trying to save her, but it's the, Ganondorf comes and he's trying to get the Triforce, as he always is.
As he always is.
But he, it causes this sort of massive calamity, as he always does.
Calamity Ganon.
But, you kind of play out the first half of the game as young Link. And this is what blew my mind as a kid. I thought I was near the end of the game. And then all of a sudden, Link gets thrown into some kind of suspended animation and he wakes up and he's an adult.
Adult Link, yeah.
And the whole world has changed.
And they've all missed you.
Exactly. And it's just but I mean, there's threads of that in Breath of the Wild too. Yeah. Look, the sheer scope of the game, the way everything works in it, it still plays brilliantly today. It's one of the few games that I have 100% completed. So in part helped to a companion guide I bought from EB Games, Warrawong Westfields.
Shout out to Warrawong. What?
Warrawong.
Warrawong.
It's where I was born, all right?
All right, sorry.
That's all right. There's no one listening there. They don't have phones.
I was going to say, do they even have reception out there?
Yeah. Because that was, I wanted to do it all. I wanted to kill all the Skulltulas and, for the most bullshit of rewards. It's oh, you can carry an extra 50 rupees now.
Wow, lucky you. You can contribute to capitalism more.
Look, and you can still play it. So if you've got Nintendo Switch Online, you pay for the expansion pass. You can get it as a part of that. And it still plays really, really well.
I'm going to do that tonight.
Yeah, it's actually really, really great. It's really fun to play it on the handheld on the Switch. Yeah. It suits that really, really well.
Yeah.
I'd be really interested to hear how you go playing it fresh, because there are things I know how to do because here's the thing. Nintendo has resold me this game 1,000 fucking times.
And you said thank you.
Every time. I bought the original release. So when the Wind Waker came out on GameCube, if you pre-ordered it, you got a bonus disc which included Euro Zelda.
A bonus disc.
Yeah. It was a bonus disc.
Remember that?
But it also included the Zelda Master Quest, which was the version of Ocarina of Time you could have played if you were in Japan and you had the 64 disc drive add-on.
Oh my God.
I rebought it on the Wii Virtual Console. I bought the 3DS remaster, and I bought the expansion pack on Nintendo Switch so I could play it.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
You could have given me one of those.
Yeah. But Nintendo's really good at just reselling us the same thing over and over again.
I'm a Pokemon shill. You don't need to tell me that.
Yeah. Queerness.
Tell me more about that. Is there similar queerness in like Breath of the Wild, similar themes or?
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as overt as it is in Breath of the Wild.
Of course. It's an older game.
Yeah, you mentioned Sheik, right?
Yeah.
So people used to think that Sheik was queer or gay. However, Nintendo said themselves that that's impossible because Sheik was Zelda.
Yeah.
I think they were just ambiguous or androgynous, in terms of what their gender may be.
Drag King Zelda.
Exactly, yeah. Until
the binder on.
I thought Sheik was, female presenting.
They're very androgynous.
Yeah,
I think that's obviously the point.
So and there's sometimes there's little characters that have like an earring in one ear, and it's just sort of like,
Is it the gay ear?
yeah. They're wearing a singlet. They've got a little chain around their neck. There were people who. So the character of Tingle, which was introduced in Majora's Mask.
I know Tingle.
Yeah, people thought Tingle had
He's a little fruity.
big fruit energy. But Nintendo flat out said themselves, no, he's not gay. He just really likes balloons and making maps.
Notoriously queer things.
Exactly. Right. That is such. I mean, God, you just see all the bottoms hanging around, making their maps to where all the tops are.
Yeah, and the
It's like,
tops are sitting there
gay
playing
humor.
with balloons.
I did make notes as well because the Gerudos are in
The Gerudos.
whatever you want to fucking call them, right? The ladies. They are in Ocarina of Time as well.
They're represented a little different though, aren't they? Kind of like bandits in that game.
Kinda. I mean,
Yeah.
they live in the same as in Breath of the Wild. They live in the desert,
Yeah.
and they are all women, and they, Ganondorf is in it, and he is a Gerudo male.
Yeah.
But I'm just sort of like, I don't think it's quite as hinted at that maybe they pop out to jump on some dick every.
Well, it was the 90s. It was implied.
yeah. But anyway, Ocarina of Time. So that's our top three. So that no wonder we are the people that we are today. So have you got a couple of honourable mentions though? Because I know it was hard to pick three. So what are your honourable mentions?
Because as I mentioned at the start, I know the first two came to me very easily. The third one interchanged. So the Remember Me part changed quite a lot.
Yep.
So there was a couple that I remembered very fondly from when I was really, really young. So I mentioned earlier, my stepdad used to work in a tattoo parlor.
Yeah.
And I used to have to sit around with him all day playing whatever they had on the PlayStation 1, and they had Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
So I used to play like Grand Theft Auto Vice City and things like that, which I really, really liked. Games.
Vice City was on the PlayStation 2.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
don't know.
The PS1 was the original Grand Theft Auto, which was
the top down. Yeah, I never played top down. Sorry, I'm not that old. I played a game that I rented from Video Easy called Scalar, which is a very, very random game. You play as a lizard that transforms into like other aliens. It was fantastic. If anyone has heard of it that is listening, please let me know. A great option that almost took the third spot was Bloodborne. It's one of the few games that I've 100%ed as well, and I did it
Bloodborne, really?
painstakingly.
Wow.
I remember getting it on PlayStation 3, and I'm not really good at hard games. I'm not great at like the Dark Souls, the Elden Ring.
Fuck that shit.
I don't have enough free time to fail all day.
Yeah.
I fail at my job enough. I can just go and play a video game and have fun, right?
Dear.
So, I'm joking. But Bloodborne was aggressive. It was frenetic. It was eldritch and dark, and I love that like, gothic shit in a video game. It's another game that I have the concept art book for, so that almost won out on the third, but it's definitely an honorable mention. Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I played Melee with a friend, but I never owned it, but I had Brawl on the Wii. Loved that game. Played it till the day I died. I'm still a massive Smash Bros. Fan. Another game that almost made my top three was Infamous on the PlayStation 3.
Yeah, I played Infamous.
An exclusive.
Yeah.
Love any game that gives you a superpower. It was pretty cool. It had like comic book elements. The traversal was really good. It was very like Assassin's Creed-y, like climbing up buildings.
And it didn't lean on any like Marvel franchise or anything like that.
It was completely self-contained. Like it built itself from the ground up.
It's super fun.
And it was super fun. And it came from the people that made Sly Cooper. How crazy. They were like, Sly Cooper, yeah, we'll make this cool game. And they made a couple sequels. It was really, really good. And then something I mentioned earlier, the Arkham games. Massive for me.
Super cool, yeah.
Super cool. The combat was so fluid and fantastic. You got to play different characters. There were some dark elements to it.
Oh yeah, probably like one of my favorite like superhero games. I'm more a DC than a Marvel anyway. So
I agree. I'm the same. It's because I like the villains.
Yeah.
So, and I find the DC villains a bit more interesting.
Plus, they brought back Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill as the voice actors from the 90s cartoon series.
Yeah,
so.
and Mark Hamill's the Joker in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And even in the games where he's not in it, he's still really, really good.
The best Joker ever.
The best Joker ever.
Yeah.
And the Arkham City, probably one of the best games I've ever played in my whole life. But I digress. What about you? What almost cracked in?
So I'm going to go back and mention Alex the Kid in Miracle World. So I talked to you about this yesterday. So Alex Kidd in Miracle World was a game that came built into the Sega Master System 2. And my sisters and I used to play it like crazy. Just a platforming kind of game. Really long platforming game and limited amount of lives, and we would get so far in it and then die, and we would just go back to the beginning and try again. So the game that I'm currently playing through on Twitch at the moment from the N64 is Mystical Ninja starring Goemon.
With its fantastic translation.
Oh, it almost made it onto this list. Okay, it came out before Zelda, and it does everything that Zelda does. Just it's so camp, and literally, okay, here's the storyline. Right, the storyline is some aliens show up in Japan and turn a Japanese castle into a European castle, and it's just a bunch of theater queens who want to put on a musical, but they all want to kill them because, like, how dare you try to put on a musical in our country?
I think I'm with those people trying to kill the theater.
Yeah, exactly. That's the story. Eternal Darkness from the GameCube. Just fabulous psychological thriller of a game. Again, really, played into that whole, mind blown by the sheer narrative and plot and scope of this game. Really, really cool game. You had a sanity meter in it.
Oh, kind of like, what's that other game? The one that PewDiePie played. The one where you're in the dark and you go crazy.
Eternal Darkness? No, okay. No idea what you're talking about.
We'll take it offline.
But anyway, yeah, so you had this sanity meter, and if your sanity meter went down, like all crazy things started to happen.
That's
like
so
the game even pretended it ended. And it was like, to be continued, like in Eternal Darkness too. Wind Waker, Zelda Wind Waker, really love that.
Classic.
Gears of War series was a really, really big one for me.
On the Xbox, yeah.
Yeah. I used to play that with my friends on Fragtastic Fridays. The Resident Evil series, which we've got a bit of news coming up about that. Resident Evil was the first 3D game I ever played.
Which one was it?
The original on the PlayStation. Had an actual PlayStation console from Video Easy.
That's the one where like the camera changes as you move.
Yeah. All the pre-rendered backgrounds.
Nice.
And Shining Force 2, which was the Mega Drive RPG game I talked
Nice.
about. And look, I could probably go on and on and on. Because
I had to keep the list short because I know I'd just be yapping about them.
Because I've been playing video games for a very long time.
Yeah, it looks like you have.
That's all right. $450 with Nurse Pam will fix that. Okay.
Shout out to Nurse Pam.
So that's it. I think that was a really, really cool discussion. I really enjoyed kind of diving through this with you. But question for you, though. What are we playing right now?
Great question. So at the moment, as I mentioned before, I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom. Loving it. I originally wrote it off because I was like, I have to build shit. Fuck my life. I have to use my brain. But I've recently repicked it back up and it's really, really good. It lives up to the hype, which I really think. And I've also been replaying Pokemon Black and White 2, specifically Black 2, but there's no real difference. Some of the best Pokemon games ever. They were the last Pokemon games that used sprites. After that, they became 3D, which controversial. I think they shouldn't have done. I remember lining up at midnight to get the game. It was the only real sequel that's ever happened. The storyline's really fantastic. The characters are really well written. It's really, really good. And the music, oh my God. I could talk all day about Pokemon music. But yeah, what about you? What are you playing? Obviously, Goemon.
Goemon, yeah. And so we are about to start. So Mitch is going to be a new permanent fixture in the Bargain Bin Game with me. And one of our first series that we're going to do together is the Misunderstood Masterpiece series, where we play what is considered to be critically the worst entry of a long-standing franchise. And we're going to start with Resident Evil 6. So I've already started playing through that. You've yet to start playing through it, but get on board. We're also going to include Doom 3 in that list as well. The other game I'm playing as well, which is for the Pile of Shame series, which is where I play a game that is considered, critically acclaimed that I never got around to playing for whatever, is Time Splitters 2.
Oh, Time Splitters. Is that the one that you play in the arcade?
No, that's... no.
Pew, pew. What's that?
You're thinking Time... I know the one you're thinking of, Time Crisis.
Oh, fuck, yeah.
No. Time Splitters is very famously, so it's a GameCube / original Xbox title. I think it was on the PS2 as well. Very famously known as being made up of developers of the original GoldenEye.
Oh.
Yeah. And you can very much sense it. So there you go. Keep an eye out for that.
I will.
That's
that on Twitch.
That's it for today, Mitch. Where can our gamers find you online?
Online, you can find me on Grindr. No, I'm joking. You can actually.
You can.
But most people find me on Instagram. My Instagram is @thatmitchbitch. I fought long and hard for that username because people used to call me that. Other than that, you can catch me at any dingy gay bar in Melbourne. I drink vodka lime soda, or if you're feeling expensive, I'll have a margarita.
And for the Bargain Bin Gamer and for myself, don't forget you can find Bargain Bin Gamer on Instagram and Blue Sky. That's Bargain Bin Gamer spelled Gaymer. If you want to continue the conversation, please like this episode, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, or give it a follow on your podcast platform of choice. And make sure you join the BQN Podcast Discord by clicking the link in the episode description. You can also support the network by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/BQN.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure as well that you follow the Bargain Bin Gamer over on Instagram and X. You can also find me streaming games live over on Twitch from time to time as well by searching for the Bargain Bin Gamer, Gaymer. Remember, the Bargain Bin Gamer is the YouTube show, Twitch channel, and podcast where I play the cheapest and shittest games out there so that you don't have to. It is part of a much larger network of podcasts called the BQN. You can support this and other BQN programs by signing up to be a patron over at patreon.com/BQN. If there are any Bargain Bin games out there you think I should be playing, please leave a comment below. Until next time, au revoir.
Double T Media.